So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna sharpen my knife, and holding the knife at the base, I'm just gonna move upward, and sharpening the knife is gonna make sure that your vegetables are cut correctly. And if anyone knows me, you know that I hate to see a vegetable that's cut uneven. So I always try to make sure that my vegetables are cut even, just how I would like to see it outside at a restaurant. I want to bring that home to my family. So right after I sharpen my knife, what I like to do is I just like to wipe it down in case there's any residue from the metal from sharpening it. It's just something that I like to do. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take one russet potato, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave the skin on because it's more nutritious, but besides that, it's gonna save me some time from peeling all these potatoes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut a little bit of the edges off to try to make them even. And as you could see, look, now my potato is stationary. It won't move if I'm cutting. So I'm just cutting on all sides just to make it even. And this is pretty much what you're looking for. I'm gonna cut off the tail ends. You could save these scraps like I do, and I put them in a bag, and I freeze them, so when I'm making vegetable broth, these things come in handy. It helps thicken your broth, but I'm not doing that today. So I want to say about 1 inch thick the potato should be when you cut it. We're trying to make squares here. So I'm only going to leave 2 pieces up top. And again, I am not a professional. This is something that I find easy for me to do. Is I just try to put the knife on my knuckles so that way my fingers aren't exposed. It'll minimize the chance of getting cut. And I've already been cut on this finger. I've cutting a potato, just sliced straight through, and I had to get some stitches done. So just make sure you keep your fingers inside. You're gonna cut again maybe about 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. Straight down, straight down. Sorry, the potato got in the way. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it in a bowl because I'm going to leach some of that starch out of the potato as soon as I finish cutting. So again, squares. Try to keep them as even as possible. If they don't come out even, who cares? It's your house. You're cooking for your family. They're going to just appreciate that you made them a meal. Again, I'm going to cut the sides. Make sure to keep your station clean. It'll be easy for you to keep moving. If you're like me, I'm always moving at the speed of light because there's always 100 things for me to do. Cut. Okay, so as you can see, I cut all my potatoes and I had 7 potatoes. Some of them are not perfect. That's totally okay. Again, you know, you're cooking for your family, so I'm sure they'll appreciate it. But this is 7 potatoes. I have 6 people who live in my house. So I always cook in big batches because I want to make sure that everybody has enough. But you can alter this recipe to be whatever you want it to be. I'm just kind of giving you some fundamentals on how I make my potatoes in the morning on a Sunday. So I'm going to steep these in water and I'll show you what it looks like. Again, we're gonna leach out some of the starch from the potato, and we'll be back. So what I've done is I've got a big bowl and I filled it with water. As you can see, the water is a little cloudy and murky. All of the dirt from that was on the potato is gonna come off, and most of the starch is gonna sink to the bottom of the bowl. So I'm just gonna put this aside. I'm not gonna leave it too long, but it's gonna give me enough time so that I can cook the rest of the vegetables and we can move forward to the next step. So here I have half of a red bell pepper. And what I do is, if I have a big, as you can see, this is a very big bell pepper. What I do is I just cut it up and I put it into reusable or disposable bags. And what I don't use, I put it in the refrigerator and I take it out as I need it. So the idea with the peppers, a lot of people are finicky. Some people don't like the peppers or the onions, or kids might be picky on what they eat. I don't like to keep the peppers and the onions the same size as the potato, so I'm just gonna cut these a little bit smaller. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut some ribbons. And as you can see here, I hit a white rib within the pepper itself. I'm just gonna cut off some of that white rib. It's a little bitter. I'm gonna need some assistance from my sous chef. Alexandro, get me a Pyrex, please. Medium size. The peppers. Cutting them just a little bit smaller, still in cubes. But again, as you can see, they are a lot smaller than what the potatoes are. Thank you. Now they're still a little chunky if they have to be pulled out. But as you could see, in comparison to the potato, they're not the same size. So what I like to do is I'm just gonna put it in a measuring cup. It's just easy to transfer it when I start cooking. You should always have like a garbage bowl next to you. I don't have one here, but you should keep it next to you so that way if you have any scraps, you just throw it right in there and you keep moving. So half. If you take a look, this pepper looks a little weird. Don't be afraid by the weird shaped fruit or vegetable that you have. Use it. It's still good. It just looks a little imperfect. So you see how this has these white ribs on the inside? Just gonna trim off the ends to make it a little even to cut. And then I'm just gonna cut the rib right out. You don't want to eat any of those seeds. Again, you could save these things for your vegetable stock. You don't have to throw that away. That's actually very good for vegetable stock. So my green pepper is a little smaller than my red pepper, so I may use the entire pepper. Looks like I'm gonna. Again, removing that white rib. make sure all of this is done beforehand. You don't want to be cooking the potatoes and have to cut the onions and the peppers. Everything should be prepped before you start cooking. It'll make things a little bit easier, a little bit quicker. The hardest thing about cooking is the prepping. Just making sure that everything is ready for you. I'm gonna take one onion. I'm gonna cut the edges off. This is how I like to cut an onion. I'm sure there are other ways too, but this is the way that I find it most easiest for me. Cut both ends, lay it flat, cut it in half, and I peel. Quick and easy peel. Let me just clean my station. And now this is where I get a little fancy. So I take the onion as flat as it is and I put my hand on it. I'm not applying too much pressure. I'm just holding it in place. And I'm taking my knife and I'm cutting just straight down. Just so that I could have some squares shaped as this. So now that I've cut that way, now I'm gonna cut this way, long ways. And again, doesn't have to be perfect. Things go wrong in the kitchen. It's okay to keep moving forward. And the onions, I'm just gonna cut straight down. Try to be quick about this because you will cry as I feel it coming right now. As you can see, look, we have little squares. It's super simple. Practice, practice, practice. And again, if it's not perfect, it's okay. It's still edible. Okay, so again, this is the second part of the onion. Now, you can see this part is a little smaller than the first one that we did. So I may not do as many horizontal slits, but I'm gonna hold it down, make one slit, make two slits. Now I'm gonna cut vertically. Not all the way to the end because the end piece of the onion is a little tough. Again, you can put this away for the stockpile. Or you could use it if you want, whatever you want to do. If you're gonna use it, just chop it up. And again, it's okay if they're not all the same size. We're just trying to make everything the same size. But if it doesn't come out that way, it's perfectly okay. Now that our onion is chopped, setting it aside. And we're ready for the next step. Let me just wipe this counter down because I can feel the onions. My nose can feel it, my eyes can feel it. Just wipe down the surface. Okay, and lastly, the last vegetable that I'm going to be cutting is a scallion. Now, I always have a lot of ingredients, so I like to store them in a Ziploc bag. Take the air out as best as I can. Seal it, and I put it away. So what I'm going to do, even though we already have onion, I like the flavor of the green onion. So I'm just going to trim off some pieces. Again, you can save those pieces for your broth. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to cut these, but I'm not saving them. I've got a big bag of vegetable scraps that I'm going to be using, so I'm just not going to use that. But if you want, you could actually plant these in some dirt. Before you do, just put them in some water, let them sprout out a little bit more. You plant them inside some soil, and voila, you've got scallions, fresh scallions that you can make at home. So these, I'm just giving them a rough chop. Just gonna set those on top of our regular onions. And there you have it. So if you take a look at the potatoes, notice how the water is starting to look a little clearer. That means that all the starch and all that gunk is settling to the bottom. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna strain them and I'm gonna give them a final rinse and just set them aside so when I'm ready to throw them in my pan, they'll be ready to go.